Welcome back to Bill Fortney's photography vlog. Today I'd like to do something a little bit different. I get a lot of emails asking what's the best Fuji lens, which lenses do you carry, what lens is best for what purpose, what is the optically most perfect lenses. Let me talk about that for a few minutes with you. I've laid on the table today virtually all of the lenses that I own that fit on the Fuji camera. At least all of the lenses that are Fuji XF lenses. I have a couple of things I adapt to the camera, but I don't use them much. I want to start by saying that there's three zoom lenses that I use the most, and that is the 18 to 135. I'm going to guess that 80% of the photographs I make are with that lens. Probably 15% of the remaining photographs are made with the 10 to 24 wide angle f4, and rarely used, but when I need it, it's the only thing that'll do it. This is the 100 to 400. Now the 50 to 140 is a great lens, but I had one, I never used it because every time I reached for it, I used this one, so I sold it. There's nothing wrong with that lens. In fact, it's probably one of the very best zoom lenses that Fuji makes, but this one is probably almost as good, and I use it all the time. So why carry two lenses this big and heavy when you're going to just use one? These are all the single focal length lenses that I own. You can see I really like single focal length lenses. The zooms in the Fuji system are exceptional, but the best of the single focal length lenses are even better. Now, if I go out to do nature photography, generally I'm carrying these three lenses right here. This covers everything on the wide end, this covers everything in the middle, and this covers everything on the long end. And they're all zooms, and in nature photography very often we can't move in closer or back up enough, and that's why you use zoom lenses, because you can be in one position that's the right place to shoot from and can change your focal length with the zoom. Now with a single focal length lens, you put it on the camera and you have to move in and out until you get the framing that you want. For lots of kind of photography, that's not a problem. But if you're out in nature where you may be up against an overdrop, or you can't back up because there's too many bushes and trees behind you to get into, that's where zooms really do well. The first question that I get is, are these zoom lenses as good as the best of the single focal length lenses? And the answer is no. They are very, very sharp. And most of my images, I'm more than satisfied with the performance of these lenses. But if I wanted to shoot the absolute sharpest photograph that I could, I'd try to use one of these single focal length lenses. The single focal length lenses generally are just a little sharper, a little better with contrast, and often the color I think is a hair better. Now, if that's true, why would I go on a trip and just use these three lenses when I'm saying some of these are better? Because I know I can get the shot with this. They're plenty sharp enough to make an excellent photograph. And the people who say, I'm going to use, well, let me take as an example. This is Fuji's XF 90mm, which is a 135 f2. This is probably the sharpest lens that Fuji has ever made. That one and the 24mm f1.4, which is not that one. It's actually the one that I'm filming the video with, so I can't hold it up and show it to you. But the 24-1.4 and the 90mm f2 are clearly two of the most tack-sharp, optically sharp lenses that Fuji makes. But both of those lenses, you have to be in the right position to use that focal length. If you can do that, then I much prefer to use this and the 16mm 1.4, which is a 24 equivalent. But very often I can't do that. So why own all of this? Well, first of all, I buy a lot of equipment because I want to test it and talk about it for you all, for the people that read my blog and come to the vlog. And I get a lot of questions, and I can't say to you, this lens is super sharp if I've never tested it, made images with it. And so I pick up most of the lenses, and I'm a lens collector. I love lenses. But the ones that you use, let's get something really clear. There are two categories of photographers, in my estimations, my opinion. And that is, there are photographers, that's people who mostly want to make great photographs. They don't care what they use as long as it gets them a great photograph. Then we have what are called pixel peepers. Those are people who look at every image, at every pixel, at every corner. They want to know if the lens is sharp at 16. They want to know if how sharp the lens is wide open, how sharp it is in the corners versus the center. I think all of us are some percentage of photographer and pixel peeper. I know some photographers that are 95% photographer and 5% pixel peepers. Truthfully, I think those are the best photographers because they're thinking about the subject and the light and how to approach the subject. They're not thinking about all this stuff all the time. I know some people that are 100% pixel peepers. And honestly, most of them are not good photographers at all. They make super sharp, wonderful images, but they don't tell you anything. There's no story. The composition is lacking. Technically, they're wonderful. So I think the first thing I'd say, and this is simply advice from somebody that's fought this battle for many years, I would strive to be mostly a photographer and enough of a pixel peeper to try to make sure that you're doing justice to your great images in terms of sharpness and quality, lack of distortion, no chromatic aberrations, all those things that the pixel peepers love to read about. But I would say, I would hope that you would be at least 80 to 90% photographer and 10 to 20% pixel peeper. Then you'll start making wonderful images. And, I'm going to be honest with you. All of the stuff that I write and do on the vlog, I'm trying to just tell you the truth as I know it from my experience. Your mileage may vary, but all of these lenses are capable of making incredible images. I just came back this fall from Acadia National Park, and it was the best color I've ever seen in the fall in my entire life. And that's saying something because I've spent my whole life chasing fall color and spring color all over America. But last fall, Acadia had incredible, incredible color. I shot 90% of the images I made there with the 18 to 135 zoom. Now, good question. Is this a sharp lens? It is a very sharp lens. Is it as sharp as the 90mm f2? No, no. I would say if you had to put it on a scale, if this is a 100, this is probably an 80. But that 20% difference makes very little difference in your photographs. Having a steady tripod, using good technique, using your self-timer, using the appropriate f-stop to get the depth that you need for the sharpness that you want, those things are far more important than the 20% difference in these two lenses. The other question that I get all the time is, if I'm a pixel peeper and I just want the absolute sharpest lenses that Fuji makes, which are the ones you would consider the very best? Easy. The 90mm f2, the 16mm 1.4, which is taping this video, and by the way, don't judge from the sharpness of the video because video is downsized for the web and you can't really make a judgment like that. Trust me, the 16-1.4 is extremely sharp. The 90, one of the other lenses that is just outrageously sharp is the 14mm 2.8. So there's three of the sharpest lenses. Honestly, if you do portrait work, the 56mm f1.2 is incredibly sharp. That would have to go in your sharpest lenses category. Truthfully, all three of the new compact lenses that I talked about in the last vlog, which are the 100, the 35, and the 23, all f2s, those are all exceptionally sharp lenses. And the 35mm f2 or f1.4, would also be among those legendary lenses. Now, which one of these lenses are not legendary? Actually, the 60 is that close to being a legendary lens. This is a Rokinon, a very inexpensive fisheye. I think I've made 12 pictures with it since I bought it. It's sharp enough for when you need a fisheye. Is it a tack sharp lens? No, it's short of this other stuff, but it's sharp enough. This lens was a gift from a friend at Fuji. This is the little 27mm pancake lens. I had this lens for, I don't know, maybe a year, and had never shot a picture with it. It doesn't have an aperture ring. I thought, it's a crazy focal length. 27 is a 40mm equivalent. I thought, I'm not going to shoot at a 40. I've got a lot of good 35s. One day I went out shooting, and I thought, it would really be cool to have a lens that was really compact for just walking around today. Wasn't going out to shoot anything in particular. So look how compact that is on that camera. Well, I went out and I shot some pictures with this lens. This lens is extraordinary. It's every bit as sharp as all of these other single focal length lenses. The only reason it's not in this category, it's an f2.8, which is, as Fuji lenses go, is a tad slow. So I don't use it a lot, but it is a wonderful, wonderful lens, and very, very sharp. The original 35mm 1.4, which at the time was considered one of the very sharpest lenses, and it's a very sharp lens, has a little bit of magic in it. It's got just a really interesting, nice look to the images. But I'd much rather carry the smaller one, which is equally sharp, not quite as fast. That's a 1.4, this is an f2, but I just tend to use that lens more. Is there anything wrong with that lens? Absolutely not. It's a great lens, love it. But that kind of gives you an idea. Now, you probably are wondering, if these are the legendary sharp lenses, where do these lenses fit in terms of category with all of these? Let's say that we've given all of these lenses an optical score, and that includes chromatic aberration and distortion, all of that stuff. Let's say we gave a 100 score to all of these lenses. Once again, the 35, the 50, the 35, and the 23 in the compact. This is the, what is it? The 14mm 2.8, the 90mm, and the 56 1.2. We're going to give all of those a score of 100. What are the scores on these zoom lenses that I use all the time? Well, I would say that the 100 to 400, compared to other lenses of its type, not compared to these lenses, but just in terms of how sharp are the other 100 to 400s that are on the market. And remember, this, because APS-C again, this is a 150 to 600. That's a lot of focal length. I have shot this lens at 600 millimeters, picture of a friend with a baseball cap on, handheld at a 60th of a second. That's 600 millimeters, and it was tack sharp because of the image stabilization in this lens. I'd give this a 90 compared to these lenses. So it is really close. This lens is not as sharp. It's probably an 80 compared to these, but it's the one I use the most. So why would I use a lens that's not as sharp as the sharpest lenses? Because it is absolutely convenient, and I can usually get the framing that I want without moving the tripod, and it's so sharp I don't worry about it. And the 12 to 24 or the 10 to 24 zoom, I don't do a lot of ultra wide lens shooting, but when I need it, this lens has turned out to be perfectly sharp, perfectly usable, and has good characteristics in every way. I'd make this a 90, 95 even, compared to these lenses. But these lenses get the most use because they allow me to stay in one place. Blades and